To quote the War Doctor in The Day of the Doctor, well, this has all the making of your lucky day. Oh, also, the critic, Mr. Nick Payne, has asked me to remind you that this video is not made for children. It's my thing now. I have to do it in every review for this series, apart from Joy to the World. That's my thing. I have to do it in every video because we did it in the first two and it became my thing. So now we've got to do it in every sketch or every introduction to the review, apart from Joy to the World because that was done already. Okay, so yeah, like Mrs. Floodin being in every episode of this series, you'll just have to put up with it. Okay, good, happy, right. Let's get on with it. Lucky day. Oh, and fuck you, Conrad, but not in a sexy way. Ruby, I really hope you didn't fuck him in a sexy way. In fact, I really hope you didn't fuck him at all. But if you did, oh, okay. Well, you go, girl, I guess. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Season 2 Bad Wolf / Series 15 / Season 41, Episode 4 Lucky Day, which is now the obligatory annual Doctor Light story that this era is doing after 73 Yards last year. It also did Dot and Bubble, but this one and 73 Yards are also the Follow Ruby Sunday episode of the series as the lead character rather than the Doctor. Also, slight update. So I was hoping to help out at a show this week, Maiden Dagenham by the Broxbourne Theatre Company. I didn't end up helping them, but I did go and see the show on the Wednesday night. So that's why this review is a bit later, because I wasn't really sure what was going on initially. So unfortunately I didn't get to go and help, but I did go and see it and it was brilliant. So do support them for theirs, especially with the next shows. However, this means that the story and the engine's reaction shall probably come out relatively on time, Saturday night, Sunday, depending on the upload. So that will go on time, whilst this review is a little bit delayed. But I'm hoping to get the story and the engine's review out a little sooner, because if the Interstellar Song Contest does actually air on the 17th, I'm hoping to get that review out by May 21st, if not on May 21st itself, because that's my birthday. Woo! I'm hoping it's a fucking 10 out of 10, because then that carries on my streak of doing 10 out of 10 reviews on my birthday for almost every year. But if it's not, hopefully it will be at least a 9. Right, speaking of streaks of brilliant stories, Lucky Day. Yep, Season 2 continues with its streak of brilliant stories. To be fair, I did like Season 1 as well, but I think Season 2 has had mostly bangers. I think Robot Revolution is very good, but not quite, really high up. But then the following 2 episodes, Lux and The Well, were awesome. For different reasons, but still really awesome. And I did like Joy to the World as well, more than most people. So far we've had a combined 4-episode streak so far. And now that's 5 because of Lucky Day. Woo! So the plot of Lucky Days, after the first scene sees the Doctor and Belinda still trying to get back to Earth, May the 24th, 2025, they arrive on New Year's Day 2007 and meet a young Conrad Clark. The Doctor has found a 50p coin and sort of gives it to Conrad. I say sort of. Conrad kind of takes it from him after being, the Doctor was going to give it to him anyway, but Conrad just kind of takes it anyway and runs off to show his mum, who's not exactly portrayed as the nicest person, giving Conrad a bit of a slap. Although in this second viewing I did watch of the episode, it looked a little less impactful. Maybe because it was the second viewing, or maybe it was less shocking on the rewatch. But it kind of looked less impactful physically than on the first viewing. Moving on, so the story then has Conrad basically explained to the audience via the medium of a podcast, as he is a podcaster about aliens and extraterrestrial and supernatural stuff. And in 2024, he then sees the Doctor again, 15th Doctor, with Ruby Sunday, having an adventure in an old abandoned department store, filmed where at the same department store Rose was filmed at, and the have some plastic mannequins out there. It has a nice little callback to Rose. If we're not getting an outright 20th anniversary story, this is a fairly close homage to that first episode of the revival that we're going to get this series. Unless it turns out Mrs. Flood is secretly Margaret Slevine or something, I don't know. Anyway, after witnessing the Doctor and Ruby take on this creature called the Shriek, yeah, imaginative name, I know, he then tries to find Ruby, who actually ends up finding him, and they end up talking about her experiences, and then end up getting into a relationship. So Conrad becomes Ruby's boyfriend. Now, in the reaction, I try not to go too much into spoilers. Now it's the time to go into spoilers for the review. As it turns out, Conrad has been playing Ruby. As it turns out, he is... Initially, we kind of think he's like Elton Pope from Love and Monsters. He's a fan of the Doctor or the sci-fi stuff. He's really into it, and he's got his... Elton has his vlog, Conrad's got his podcast, and they're getting really into it. A bit like the same character in Random Shoes, sort of had similarities. The Torchwood episode had similarities to Love and Monsters, and both of those episodes came out in the same year. So Conrad initially starts out like a bit of an Elton Pope character, but then Elton Pope then gets hooked up with the companion, one of the last companions. So that's a really interesting idea. But it turns out Conrad is no Elton Pope. He's more of a Victor Kennedy. And actually Victor Kennedy was, if Love and Monsters was done now, as opposed to 2006. Love and Monsters was a story, sort of a love letter to the fans, and also a cautionary tale of fans taking the series, their love for the series so far is represented by Linda and Victor Kennedy and their obsession with the Doctor. So Love and Monsters was both a homage and a cautionary tale for the fans, as of 2005 to 2006. And similarly, we had something like, in the case of the former, we had something like that with a couple scenes of Lux. Now we're getting something like the latter, as we've got Conrad and a couple of his friends reviving Think Tank, possibly inspired by the group from 1974-75's robot from the classic seasons, from season 12 of the classic series, Tom Baker's first story as the Fourth Doctor. Whether that's a direct homage or not in universe, whether they took the name from the original Think Tank or not, they don't say, but it is production-wise, it was a direct nod back to that. And like how Think Tank back there was a group of fascist elitist scientists, not unlike the Khalids that we'd see later on in Genesis of the Daleks that season. And here, the kind of right-wing political stuff continues, as Conrad and his friends are sort of like right-wing influencers / conspiracy theorists who want to bring down UNIT, claiming that they're lying, or saying that they're lying at least, and then trying to get the general public on their side to manipulating them into thinking that UNIT are wasting taxpayer and government money and are basically frauds, so to speak, because of the whole they don't believe in the alien stuff, which by this point in the universe timeline actually sounds a bit like nonsense, because the whole do people know about aliens keeps going back and forth. I think Mr. TARDIS either did a very good video or he touched upon it in a video about who knows about aliens post the events of Rose, because in the classic series it was not really public knowledge for the most parts, other than maybe a few bigger events, but even then that was still covered up by UNIT or whoever at the time, like the countermeasures from Remembrance of the Daleks, the army in Web of Fear, and the police in War Machines, someone would have covered it up. But you see some of that later on in Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures as well. But when you come to the revival, other than what may be covered up by Unit, Torchwood, etc., most of the time, most people kind of knew about aliens for a bit, then they didn't, and then it kind of got a bit confused, and now we're back to the point of maybe they do, maybe they don't. And now Conrad and his group are now trying to persuade people that, yeah, they were all fake, or majority of them are faked by Unit or whoever. So the story kind of becomes a kind of a political allegory for people spreading fake news and fake inspiration to turn the public against honest, good people who are trying to protect them. In a way, Conrad and his group are very much like the misinformation spreading people online who, as well as about real life stuff, they also spread misinformation about what happens in media. I'm looking at you, hashtag not my doctor, folks, and Phantom Menaces, spreading lies about stuff. Okay, so I've gone on about the plot for quite some time. Not as much as I did for The Well, but okay. So what's my thoughts on this? Well, this is a really great episode, as I already established. I find the plot already really great with the whole Conrad pretending to be kind of like an Elton Pope-esque character before he turns on Ruby. And similarly, it's great having to see Ruby's life post season 1, but pre this season's finale, as she's going to be back in that, or at the very least the last episode. I heard that she was going to be in 3 episodes, and I don't think she's going to be in either of the next 2, so it'll have to be episode 7 as well, if that's correct. Besides, we need her and Belinda to meet, and Millie Gibson and Verada Safu seem to be having fun on set together, so yeah, they'll have to meet at some point. By the way, this is the first episode of this year of the show to have a third person's name in the opening titles. They kind of had a missed opportunity not having Bonnie Langford in the season finales one last year, or having her or Yasmin Finney in any of the specials. Yasmin in Star Beast, Bonnie in Giggle. But yeah, this episode is a Ruby-centered episode, first and foremost. I mean, well, I suppose it's half a Ruby-centered episode and half a Conrad-centered episode. So you're following the former companion and the villain of the story, more or less, in side by side. And yeah, it's really great to see Ruby as a character grow more post the end of the previous series when the Doctor's gone. And she's trying to live her life whilst also working for Unit, but she's still overcoming the events of the previous series. I suppose Empire of Death did one thing right then. It gave Ruby some trauma that still continues to linger on to her after seeing everything destroyed. But she's still having a happy family life. I think in terms of her family life, it's really happy because she's found her birth parents and having a good time with their, well, we don't see the dad, but having a time with her mum and with her foster family, who are back and are fantastic as per usual. Cherry Sunday is a delight, and so is Carla, but Cherry Sunday even more so. But yeah, having the Sunday unit back was great for their few scenes together and interacting, and well, such fun. But also the unit dynamic. The main core cast of units that's going forward seems to be, as well as Kate Stewart, is Colonel Ibrahim and Shirley Ann Bingham, which is interesting because she didn't meet Ruby in the previous series, so they've obviously met off screen, and now they're friends. Okay, I'm sure there's a book or a comic or a Big Finish adventure in the far future, or hopefully not too far future, that will have them meet, interact, etc. Anyway, so they're the core cast for Unit, and they'll be transferring to War Between the Land and the Sea when that comes around as well. No idea what happened to Morris, though. I don't know where he's gone. Ruby is still a bit on edge after the previous series, so she starts to suspect something's wrong. Like, if the Shriek has been following Conrad, then that, because she starts to believe that it kind of sprayed some ooze on him like it did on her, that now it's tracking here, or that's what she thinks. So actually she calls in for backup. It's at this point in time that it's revealed that Conrad is actually playing Ruby and he and his group of friends were putting on a prank to expose UNIT, and then with their arrest to then show UNIT being fascists and dictators and um, enforcing their power, etc., over the people, the British people, and keeping them lined up in fear. So it's all part of a big anti-unit conspiracy, and they get people turning on them. They even have a man on the inside, Jordan Lang, who has a couple of lines, but is otherwise just kind of there. The third act of the story, mostly, as well as the tension building for the people turning on UNIT, because it does get really scary when after the reveal, it's quite tense with the think tank group. But then when more people come out to go against UNIT, when Conrad calls them out, it does get more tense, for suspenseful, and with what's going on. It's because we know UNIT, we've been following these characters, so when people start turning them on them in a really strong manner, it is really scary, much like how it would be done in real life. Now people just turn lots of people, a whole influenced group. So again, yeah, dangers of who do you follow, whose influences you, and who should you trust. So the last third of the episode, I think, kind of maybe not quite as strong as the first act, with Conrad and Ruby getting to know each other and the build up to the prank reveal, and the second round the middle where the prank happens and quote prank, and then the reveal, and then Conrad and his group quote exposing unquote UNIT. But as we get towards the finish line, it kind of, I'd say, it probably wobbles a bit here as well, a bit like with Lux. But whilst Lux kind of kept it consistent, this one keeps it consistent as well. But I think this one, it's interesting because then Conrad breaks into the UNIT building thanks to Jordan Lang, and then tries to expose them even more, and has a gun pointed at them, but they're also pointing guns at him, so he's trying to show off their, really, make them look even more worse than they already were. Yeah, the ending sort of is kind of just mostly a standoff sort of situation, which is fine, and it leads to a really great moment where Kate's like, you know what, I will kind of show you the evidence that you so desperately want, and she actually brings out the real Shriek from earlier in the episode to attack him, because he's been targeted, until he eventually confesses he made it up and Ruby saves him, and then he's eventually bitten by the Shriek and captured, but given the sort of antidote thing inside. And I am aware, because the people did kind of comment about how she handled the situation. It wasn't quite that great, because she was almost likely willing to let Conrad die, or at least get very close to being killed, until he confessed he made his lie, and then she let Ruby and Shirley save him. So, well, Shirley gave Ruby the taser, so that was the once the confession was out from him, that was the cue to go, I guess. But she kind of went quite far with it, probably because he insulted the Brigadier. Nobody insults the Brigadier. How dare you, Conrad, you bastard? Nobody insults the Brigadier and gets away with it. Brigadier is based most of the time, but mostly based. So yeah, people were kind of like, they weren't quite so keen on that, but I think that was intentional, because Pete Matique has said that is going to be kind of ramifications for the character going forward, and how we're going to see her in the spin-off in The War Between the Land and the Sea, which will be either later this year or next year, depending what happens. Depends if season 3, if it's commissioned, if it's going to be out next year, or it will be 2027, and they'll need something for 26 to fill the void for a bit. So eventually the day is saved. Conrad's confession and the truth of UNIT is on the internet, and people are now standing with UNIT, although I'm wondering if some of the ramifications in the wider world will be continued to be followed up on, either in the finale, when Conrad is expected to come back as well, by the by, or in The War Between the Land and the Sea, where people may be kind of a bit split whether there be some still believing in Conrad, or they've come around to seeing what units really like, but didn't quite like how how the situation was handled, and thus believe them but still don't like them, if you know what I mean. And then there's the people who will fully like them, and maybe some people might not like them, but will agree on how the situation was handled and will admit that they're still a force of good. They might just not like them. Yeah, I think we could go in several different directions in terms of the public's perception of UNIT, and I think War Between the Land and the Sea is going to challenge that further when the Sea Devils turn up. But we'll find out more about that when that comes around. As for Conrad, he gets a bit of a tongue bashing by the Doctor, who goes into a passionate rant about people like him. So based Doctor, I guess, in a scene where, funny enough, the TARDIS doesn't land around him. He's kind of sort of transported inside. It's a bit strange how it's done, but it works really well for the scene. And it turns out that Conrad was the one to tell the Doctor about Belinda. So this is prior to the robot revolution for the Doctor. So I'm guessing he goes to look up Belinda Chandra after that. So I guess that's that mystery solved. Although another mystery resumes as Mrs. Flood makes her episodic appearance this season by being the governor of the prison and giving Conrad the keys. Conrad is set to appear in the series finale by the looks of it in Wish World and the Reality War, so expect this to see something to do with that when we get to it. We'll find out in a few weeks' time, hopefully. So yeah, Lucky Day, absolutely brilliant episode in terms of the story, and execution-wise, it is also really great in building this exciting but also dread-filled episode. Sorry about the wobble just now. A really great one. I really liked the different tones of the story, going from kind of a romantic, not quite a comedy, a romance at the start, featuring a former companion and someone who's really interested in aliens and extraterrestrial stuff. Then you have the horror action story with Shriek and Unit, and then the twist where it's revealed that, oh shit, these guys are right-wing influencers who want to spread lies about Unit, or try to make Unit look really bad. Or if they generally did believe Unit was bad, then they've got the power to really make them look worse. And then the episode kind of follows that political allegory angle for a bit, but in a really tense thriller angle. Maybe not so much political thriller, but, well, maybe, I suppose it is a political thriller, but not with governments, but with ideology through modern influences. And then sort of kind of a mixture of that and the horror tension angle towards the end with the last act. So it's a really good episode to play with the multi-genres in there as well, and I think it serves as a brilliant follow-up for Ruby as a character, and interesting to follow another character who you initially like at first, like Elton Pope, but then turns out to be more of a Lindy Pepperbean later on down the line for different reasons. But yeah, definitely someone you would not want to have around. And I think it's a really great episode for Unit as well, giving us a taste of what they're like when the Doctors are not around, and serving as a precursor for the War Between the Land and the Sea. So I think merging the post-Season 1 Ruby and the pre-War Between the Land and the Sea Unit stuff together works really well. And so, yeah, I think this is a solid story. I don't know if I would say it's a 100% amazing episode. I don't know if I'd give it a 10 out of 10, but I do think it's a very strong one. I think maybe the last act, I think it's just mostly them just talking, not even shout. They're not even that angry with each other unless Conrad's insulted the Brigadier or pointing a gun at Ruby, but otherwise, until the Shriek's released, it's mostly just a kind of a standoff. But it's still mostly handled really good. Also, I would have thought the real Shriek could have had a bit more better CG, considering that the fake Shrieks look better than the real deal. I thought the thing was that the fake shrieks were supposed to be the real deal, but worse. But I think they actually look better than the real one. So, or at least the CG version of the real one, anyway. But the practical stuff looks amazing. So overall, this episode is a brilliant balance of everyday slice of life post traveling with the Doctor stuff with a former companion, following a new character you believe to be a good guy in this vein of Elton Pope, but then turns out to be an absolute bastard, following in the strings of Think Tank from Robot, but in the modern context and with the modern political ideology, and putting the safety of the world at risk by saying UNIT are bad, and then also setting UNIT and its core group up for the war between the land and the sea really well and really effectively, if that series is going to follow up from the themes from this episode and some of the choices that some of the characters have made. We'll find that out when we get to that series. So yeah, I think it's a brilliant combination of multiple genres, but I don't think it's 100% perfect. So I'll end this review by giving Lucky Day a 9 out of 10. It's a high 9 because, again, I don't know if there's anything that's genuinely bad. Maybe the story might be seen as more of a letdown on later viewings, depending on where they take Conrad's story in the finale, or the UNIT stuff in the finale, or in the war between the land and the sea. But as on its own episode, it works really well. Very much like 73 Yards did last year, and that one I think I gave a 9 as well. It was close to being a 10, but some of the question marks and about what that's the choice we're going with sort of kind of let it down a bit. And I think this one has less of that. So I think these ones are kind of equal. I think 73 Yards is stronger with building the dread, but Lucky Day is stronger with, and Ruby's character as someone who's all alone. But this one sort of works better on terms of building the world around what's going on, and Ruby being turned on by the public, but those closest to her are still supportive. Oh, the poor girl can't catch a break. Hopefully things will go better for her in the finale. But yeah, Lucky Day, that was great. Also, forgot to mention, this was, well, I didn't forget, but I couldn't mention till now. This is Pete Mattai's third episode for the show. He's the first returning writer, besides Stephen Moffat and Rusty Davis himself, for this era. Previously writing Kablam and Practice for the Jodie Whittaker era in series 11 and 12, respectively. I really liked Kablam, although the ending's not quite that great, and I kind of think it kind of hurts the reputation of that story. Practice, I think, is fine. It's okay. And I mean, it's got some problems, but it's not exactly insulting or awful. So, like, it's good, but I wouldn't say it's better than good. But I wouldn't say it's worse than meh. So yeah, I think I might give it a 7 at the time, possibly. I think that's maybe even being a bit generous, to be honest. But he does excel at writing the collection box set trailers / mini episode. There's some really good ones. I think that those deserve their own video, though, especially as I'm done quite a lot of time talking about this episode. But I'll just say that I think my favourite might be the last of the specially made, shot, filmed minisode trailers, because the season 25 and season 7 ones had some cool new edits as the trailers. But in terms of the minisodes being done as part of the trailer or as the trailer itself, outside of the what's included on the box set stuff, I think my favourite might actually be the last one of those, which is the season 15 one with Leela. So yeah, plus also the season 26 one with Ace is the best of those first couple box sets out as well. So I think those are those two in the Perry season 22 ones are my favourites from that. Pete Mattai also wrote the Tales from the TARDIS, Mind Robber, and Curse of Fenric segments as well. So he's done a really good job with the classic side of the series when it comes to the classic stuff. When it comes to the more newer series stuff, I think he's like I said, I thought Kablam was great besides the ending, and the practice was okay. This one's bloody brilliant though, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with the war between the land and the sea with Russell T Davies. Until then, thank you for watching my review of Lucky Day, and I'll see you guys next time for the story and the engine, which will be written by another new writer. The only other new writer besides the one from The Well. Actually, that's not quite true. Juno Dawson didn't write for the TV series. She's done some Tortured Audios and the Doctor Who Redacted podcast audio drama series, and I think a 13th Doctor book, The Good Doctor. So she's done expanded media, but she hasn't written for the TV series. Okay, so we got two entirely new writers and a third who's done expanded media and is doing her first TV episode. And then we've got another writer, who's Pete Matai, who has done previous episodes plus some other stuff as well. So awesome. Great, some great variety here. So next time will be the story and the engine. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel.